Hi, I'm Lila, a 28-year-old mom-to-be, and I'm married to the love of my life, Nathan. We're expecting our first child, and this journey has been nothing short of incredible. Nathan and I have been together for over 7 years, married for 4, and finding out we were expecting was like a dream come true. We've faced life's ups and downs together, but this pregnancy has brought a whole new level of excitement and joy to our relationship. Nathan has been nothing but amazing throughout. He's been to every doctor's appointment, helped me set up the nursery, and even started reading parenting books. Watching him transform into this hands-on, excited dad to be has melted my heart more times than I can count. We've been brainstorming baby names, decorating the nursery, and planning for our future as a family of 3. Life has been wonderful, and I couldn't wait to share the news with our loved ones. When I hit the second trimester, Nathan and I decided it was time to tell our families. We waited until we were certain everything was progressing well. Because, let's be honest, those first few months can be a nerve-wracking time. We planned a casual lunch at our home with close family and friends to share the news. Everyone came over thinking it was just another family gathering. But once they noticed my growing belly, the secret was out. The reactions were mostly heartwarming. My mom cried tears of joy and hugged me like she never wanted to let go. She understood why we had waited to share the news and was over the moon about becoming a grandmother. But there was one reaction that wasn't so joyful. Nathan's mother, Elaine. From the moment she realized we hadn't told her right away, her expression shifted from surprise to anger. Elaine felt personally slighted. "How could you keep this from me?" she demanded, her voice sharp. I tried to explain that we'd only waited because we wanted to ensure everything was okay before making an announcement, but she wasn't having it. She accused me of deliberately excluding her, and no amount of reasoning seemed to make a difference. The rest of the gathering was tense. Elaine barely spoke to me, avoided eye contact, and buried herself in her phone while everyone else mingled. She made it clear to everyone that she was upset, repeatedly stating that she should have been the first to know, and that we had robbed her of precious time to bond with her unborn grandchild. The evening ended on a sour note. Elaine made a dramatic point of saying goodbye to me last, her tone dripping with disapproval. I could feel the tension building as Nathan walked his parents to their car. Their voices, heated and sharp, carried back to the house as they argued. Elaine accused me of trying to control Nathan and the family, and she berated him for not standing up to me. Nathan, to his credit, defended me, telling her that the decision to wait had been mutual and that she needed to move past it. When he returned to the house, Nathan was visibly frustrated but tried to reassure me. "She'll get over it," he said, pulling me into a hug. I wanted to believe him, but Elaine's reaction had shaken me. This was supposed to be a joyful moment, a celebration of new life, but instead, it had turned into a source of conflict. That night, as I lay in bed, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Elaine, and my heart sank. Her words were cutting. "I can't believe you kept this from me. You've disrespected me and caused a rift in this family. Shame on you." I showed the message to Nathan, who was furious. He called her immediately, warning her not to send such messages again. He even threatened to cut contact if her behavior continued. Elaine backed off for a while, but it wasn't long before she returned with a new tactic. She called Nathan and proposed throwing us a baby shower. She insisted it was her way of making amends and wanted to plan everything herself. Nathan was hesitant, but hopeful. He thought this could be a way to mend fences and create a more harmonious family dynamic before the baby arrived. I wasn't as optimistic. To me, Elaine's sudden offer felt less like an olive branch and more like a way to regain control. But Nathan was eager to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I wanted to support his effort to keep the peace. So, reluctantly, I agreed to let Elaine plan the shower, hoping against hope that this time things would go smoothly. Little did I know, this decision would lead to one of the most chaotic and stressful days of my life. Elaine was ecstatic when Nathan told her she could plan the baby shower. She acted as though this was her moment to shine, and honestly, I wanted to believe her enthusiasm was genuine. But almost immediately, things started going off the rails. I assumed Elaine would involve me in the planning process. At least ask about the theme, decorations, or guest list. After all, it was my baby shower. Instead, she went completely rogue. I found out through my mom, who had called Elaine to discuss details, that everything had already been decided. Elaine had chosen the decorations, the games, and even the food without consulting anyone. When my mom suggested collaborating, Elaine brushed her off, saying it was all a surprise for me. At that point, I should have put my foot down, but I didn't want to escalate the tension. I figured, it's just a party. How bad could it be? Fast forward to the day of the shower, and as soon as I walked into the venue, a rented banquet hall, I realized I had seriously underestimated Elaine's ability to create chaos. The decorations were, well, let's just say they weren't my style. The entire room was decked out in brown and beige, an overwhelming and mismatched attempt at a safari theme. It felt more like a dull corporate conference than a celebration of a new baby. But the pièce de résistance was an enormous banner near the entrance. It wasn't a sweet, welcome baby sign, or even a collage of cute baby-themed images. No, it was a blown-up collage of Nathan's baby pictures, complete with captions highlighting how adorable he was as a child. I froze, staring at the banner in disbelief. This wasn't about our baby at all. This was Elaine's way of making the event about her experiences as a mother. When I finally found my voice and asked her why on earth she thought this was appropriate, she laughed and said, "Well, I'm sure the baby will look just like Nathan. I wanted everyone to see how cute he was as a child." My mom arrived shortly after and immediately clocked the situation. She wasn't one to mince words, and when she saw the banner, her expression shifted from shock to determination. Without saying a word, she walked over, grabbed the banner, and carried it out of the room. The room fell silent as everyone watched her decisively toss it into the trash. Elaine, who had been chatting with some guests, saw what happened and stormed over. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her voice sharp. "This is about Lila and her baby," my mom replied firmly. "Not your nostalgia trip." Elaine's face turned red, but my mom didn't back down. The tension was palpable, and I could feel every guest in the room wishing they were anywhere else. Elaine eventually retreated, muttering something about people not appreciating her efforts, but the damage was done. I tried to salvage the mood, focusing on the friends and family who were there to celebrate. We played a few games, and for a moment, it seemed like things might turn around. But Elaine wasn't done. When it was time to open gifts, Elaine presented me with an oversized box, her grin practically splitting her face. The room went quiet as I opened it, and I immediately regretted doing so in front of everyone. Inside was a bizarre collection of hand-me-down baby clothes, clearly from decades ago, mixed with random, unrelated items like a ceramic figurine and a photo album of Nathan's childhood. "Do you like it?" Elaine asked, beaming. "I thought it'd be nice for the baby to have these family heirlooms." I forced a smile and thanked her, trying to keep things polite. But my mom and a few close friends shot me sympathetic looks, clearly understanding how awkward the situation was. Then came the cake cutting. Elaine had ordered a massive, over-the-top tiered cake, which was honestly more fitting for a wedding than a baby shower. She clinked her glass to get everyone's attention and stood up to make an announcement. "I've come up with the perfect name for the baby," she declared proudly. My jaw dropped. Nathan and I hadn't even finalized a name ourselves, and here she was, taking it upon herself to decide. "We'll name her after my great-grandmother," she continued, rattling off a name so old-fashioned and out of touch it sounded like it belonged in a Victorian novel. I couldn't stay silent. "Elaine," I said as calmly as I could manage, "Nathan and I have decided to choose our baby's name together. We appreciate your input, but this is a decision for us as parents." Her smile faltered, and then she exploded. "After everything I've done for you," she yelled, "you should be grateful and respect my wishes. I spent so much money on this shower, and this is how you thank me?" She was yelling now, pointing a finger in my face. "You're so ungrateful. You should be thanking me for all I've done. You're just trying to come between me and my son." Nathan, who had been across the room talking to a guest, rushed over when he heard the commotion. My mom stepped in front of me like a shield, telling Elaine to back off. But Elaine wasn't done. She started hurling insults out at me, and even criticized my mom, saying she'd done a terrible job raising me. The room was in chaos. Guests were visibly uncomfortable, some even starting to leave. Elaine, clearly drunk, grabbed a few of the gifts off the table and threw them to the ground, calling me a witch and accusing me of turning her son against her. At that point, I'd had enough. For my safety and the safety of my unborn child, I called the police. Elaine's behavior had gone far beyond embarrassing. It was outright threatening. When the officers arrived, she tried to paint herself as the victim, but her belligerence only escalated. In the end, she was arrested for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. I left the baby shower with my mom and closest friends, shaken but relieved to be away from the chaos. Nathan stayed behind to deal with the aftermath, apologizing profusely to everyone who had witnessed the spectacle. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, but Elaine had turned it into a nightmare. And as much as I wanted to put it behind me, I knew this was far from over. The aftermath of the baby shower fiasco was just as chaotic as the event itself. By the time I got home, I was emotionally drained and my nerves were shot. My mom and a couple of close friends stayed with me, trying to help me process what had just happened. The surreal image of Elaine being escorted out by the police was burned into my memory, and honestly, I wasn't sure whether to laugh or cry. Nathan came home later that evening, looking exhausted but furious. "I can't believe her," he muttered, shaking his head as he dropped his keys on the counter. "I don't know how to fix this." I looked at him, feeling a mix of frustration and sympathy. "Nathan, this isn't something we can fix. Your mom crossed every line imaginable today. I can't keep dealing with this." He nodded, his expression heavy with guilt. "You're right. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I should have stepped in sooner." The days that followed were tense. Elaine had been released from custody with a slap on the wrist, but that didn't stop her from playing the victim. She began telling anyone who would listen that I was the villain in the situation. According to her, I had stolen her son, ruined her reputation, and of course, overreacted by calling the police. Her narrative started gaining traction with some of Nathan's extended family, those who hadn't been at the baby shower and only heard Elaine's version of events. We began receiving calls and texts from family members demanding to know why I had humiliated Elaine. It was infuriating. To make matters worse, Elaine sent me a series of texts dripping with passive-aggressive venom. "I hope you're happy with yourself," one read. "You've driven a wedge in this family, and it's all because you can't handle a little constructive criticism. Good luck raising a child with that attitude." I showed the messages to Nathan, who immediately called her. He didn't mince words. "Mom, this stops now," he said firmly. "Lila is my wife and the mother of my child. If you can't treat her with respect, then you won't be a part of our lives." Elaine tried to guilt trip him, of course. "Nathan, I'm your mother. I've always been there for you, and now you're just going to throw me away for her?" Nathan didn't budge. "You weren't there for me today, Mom. You embarrassed yourself and hurt Lila. I'm serious. This behavior has to stop." But Elaine wasn't ready to give up. A few days later, she showed up unannounced at our house. I was alone at the time, trying to sort through the mountain of baby gifts we'd brought home. The doorbell rang, and when I opened it, there she was, looking smug and defiant. "Lila, we need to talk," she said, pushing past me into the house before I could respond. I froze for a moment, stunned by her audacity. "Elaine, you can't just barge in here," I said, my voice shaking with anger. She ignored me and launched into a tirade about how I had ruined everything and how I owed her an apology for humiliating her at the baby shower. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as her voice grew louder, her accusations sharper. That's when Nathan walked in. He had come home early from work, and the moment he saw his mom standing there yelling at me, he snapped. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he demanded, his tone sharp. Elaine turned to him, her expression indignant. "I'm trying to fix this mess your wife created." "No," Nathan said firmly, stepping between us. "You don't get to come into our home and treat Lila like this. If you can't respect her, you need to leave. Now." Elaine tried to argue, but Nathan wasn't having it. "I'm serious. Mom, leave. And don't come back until you're ready to apologize." She stared at him, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Finally, she turned on her heel and stormed out, slamming the door behind her. After she left, I broke down. The stress of the baby shower, the fallout, And now this confrontation, it was all too much. Nathan held me as I cried, promising that he would handle things from here. That night, we had a long talk about boundaries. I told Nathan that I couldn't allow Elaine to be a part of our lives if this was how she was going to act. He agreed, saying he was tired of constantly mediating her behavior. I'll talk to her one last time, he said. If she doesn't change, we'll cut her off. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. Elaine's behavior wasn't just a one time outburst, it was part of a larger pattern of entitlement and disrespect. And as much as it hurt to cut ties, I knew I needed to protect myself and our baby from her toxicity. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of peace. It wasn't over yet, but at least Nathan and I were on the same page. Together, we were determined to create a safe, loving environment for our child, one free from the chaos Elaine seemed intent on bringing into our lives.